hello, and welcome back to the Holistically Awakened podcast. I'm your host, Laurence, and today I wanted to share a few lessons and things that I've been working on behind the scenes because I think oftentimes it's easy to see the highlight reel and think that everyone's killing it and just see, the highlights of what's going well for people, and that's great. But I also want to share another side in terms of the learnings, the lessons, things that I've been working through that I continue to work through. So let's dive into it. So the first one is shifting envy into gratitude. And so this can come up in really any area of our life, but it usually comes up in the areas that we are lacking in. So, for instance, if we're really wanting to change our body composition or our health, we might feel envious of people who seem really fit or healthier. They can do all these things that we can't. And this can create this feeling of lack, like, I don't have that. And that can create this envy, this jealousy. And that really puts us more into this lack mentality and scarcity because we're focusing on what we don't have. This could, of course, come up in career, with money, probably the biggest one, where many people can feel triggered by other people who are, making lots of money or making money in different ways. Like, they're working less, but they're making more. This is, happening a lot in the online space where we're hearing about these digital creators and entrepreneurs, coaches, etc. But not just that space, of course, where this can create that envy and it can really show up as like even criticism or, negative thoughts about these people, and it can even show up in relationships where, there might be people in relationships or ideal relationships, getting engaged, married, etc. And that can bring up envy as well. And oftentimes this can show up negatively in terms of criticizing, putting people down, just noticing like these negative thoughts and things that we have to say about people who have what we want. And so I definitely have noticed this many times in my life. When I was going through my health crisis, it was with health, especially around like, why am I doing all of these things? Why do all of these other people seem fine, but I have to really be careful with what I eat? And why am I dealing with the cystic acne and all of these things? And it really put me in this like victim mentality and really didn't serve me. And so what I also noticed is this came up at the beginning of the year in terms of my business, where there was a lot of envy coming up through negative projections when I saw people, running businesses the way that I really wanted to or having the success that I really wanted to. And I noticed there was this envy and this feeling of like, must be nice kind of thing. And really just putting myself into this victim mentality of they're lucky, I can't do it, or I can't have that. And also of like just feeling negatively towards these people that, I saw killing it. And so for me, there was a moment where I really started to gain more awareness around this. And I was done with it. I was so fed up of feeling negatively and feeling like everyone else is killing it and other people can have what I want. And it just put me in this feeling of like powerlessness of the victim, right? And so instead of staying in this mentality, I started to practice shifting into gratitude and celebration of, oh my God, that's amazing that that person is achieving that. And that's something that I would aspire to be, have, do. And that also means that it's possible. So if I'm feeling like, oh, there's maybe some envy coming up, it's probably because I want some form of that. And this is just an example that's coming up in my external reality of this is possible. And if there is an emotional charge, it probably means that there is some meaning that I'm attaching to it or that it's important to me. And so this is where we can shift our perspective to, well, if you do have a desire, but you don't really have proof that it's possible, when you start seeing proof of other people doing it, that is a reinforcement of that. And that's just showing you what is possible. It's expanding your mind. And that's what we want. Because it's hard to really believe in something if we do not think that it's possible for us. And oftentimes that really gets reinforced when we see it's possible for other people. So it must be possible for me too. So I started to literally just notice on the daily, where was I getting into this envy and even victim mode? And how could I actually celebrate the person who has the thing that I want and really find gratitude of finding proof that it's possible? And so this is really something that I've been working on in many areas of my life. And, it can come up at different times in different situations. And oftentimes it comes up the most when we are not achieving the thing that we want to achieve. It usually it comes up in an area where we are lacking or we haven't achieved the goal yet. It's something that is really important to us. Usually that's in an area, whether it's health, relationship, or money, career. So that was the first thing that I wanted to bring up, shifting envy into celebration. Like, let's celebrate these people that have the results that we want because it's just a mirror to show you what is possible for you too. The second one is going off of human design and specifically as a generator. And I just want to mention human design is really a great tool to sort of look into your energetic blueprint of how you best show up in the world, manage your energy. You can look at it through so many different lenses of your life. And I've done other podcasts on it in the past. But if you want to look into it, you can literally look up human design. There's like a billion resources that come up now. And you just need your birthday, time, and location, and you can get your chart for free and find out what your profile is and your chart. And so basically in a nutshell, I'm a generator type. And so one of our strategies is all about waiting to respond. And this is how we best um, sort of go about in the world in terms of receiving guidance. And it's basically our path of least resistance, like the strategy that we use. And so this one is very difficult because oftentimes it's very hard, first of all, as humans to just be in the void, the emptiness of not doing anything and just waiting. And this is definitely hard for me. It's been something that's been very difficult. And so waiting to respond has been something that I've definitely noticed is a really effective strategy because I'm responding to my environment with my gut response, which is my intuition. And that will help me make decisions that are intuitively based. And again, following that path of least resistance so that you can really just make more aligned choices instead of overthinking everything and pros and cons lists and everything and that sort of thing. But the challenge is, of course, that waiting period and really allowing yourself to respond to the external versus listening to your mind who puts pressure on you, like you need to do something, you need to figure this out, and overthinking things and things like that. And so for me, I definitely noticed that I sort of forgot about this in the last few months or the last year. And it really brought me back to my human design strategy and specifically this concept of waiting to respond versus just scrambling to make a decision to do something to be productive because that is just draining. That creates burnout. And then we actually don't usually have the opportunity to actually respond to the correct thing. We will often do so many other things. And then we have all of our energy that is just drained by all of these things that we're trying to figure out. And so that's what happened to me when I was looking for clarity, trying to figure out my next move, specifically in business, and just not having any answers, not having any clarity. And for me, there was a lot of push and pressure of like, I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out. I don't have time. And this just kept me in this loop of like not having clarity and not having any sort of inspiration or, yeah, like next move that would come up. And this is really how it works. Like we get the next step and then the next after that. But we really have to be able to sit in that in between when nothing is happening. And obviously, as I mentioned, it can be very difficult to sit in that in between, which is very difficult for me because the mind likes to put pressure on us and likes to make us think that we always have to be doing something. And so this is where I've really been leaning into this practice again, which is, a practice of when nothing is coming up for me, I don't feel inspired, I don't have any clarity, leaving it, taking space, following what does light me up. Like, what do I actually feel inclined to do right now? Maybe it's go for a walk, chat with a friend, go to a coffee shop. Like, it could be anything, but really taking that space and then seeing what comes up in my environment to respond to. Maybe it's something someone says, something I see online. It could be even like a thought that comes in, and then I can tune into my gut response. Is this a yes or a no? And then take that next step. So that's something that I've been really working on in order to get out of this busyness, like constant go, go, go energy and this cycle of not having clarity, trying to force the clarity, then feeling less inspired or even more drained. And so we don't want any of that. We really want to be able to move from a space of intuitive alignment. And the best way to do that is to start to get to know how your intuition comes through for you and making space and not constantly being in the noise, which is another point I wanted to make where for me it was like, okay, I don't have clarity. I need to go find answers. Listen to a billion podcasts. Look on, social media. What is everyone else saying? Getting on these calls with coaches. And a lot of the time it just didn't resonate. And because there was all of that noise externally versus really taking that space to listen and wait for what needs to come through for me. So this might apply for you. Maybe you're in a space of, not having clarity or feeling really all over the place and chaotic. And whether or not you are a generator or, another type, this is really, really important regardless, because we can't hear ourselves if we're constantly in the external noise of what's going on in the world. And that's where it can be really, really beneficial to actually create that space of like timeout, no consumption, taking steps away from social media, your phone, having some quiet time, whether that's meditation, going out for walks, whatever it is, to really start to reconnect to yourself so that you can actually hear that guidance, that next step when it does come through. And so for the next point, I wanted to mention what would be the easy option? How can I make things easier for me? So this is another thing that I've been working on behind the scenes because my mind likes to overcomplicate everything, really go into like, yeah, just how can I make everything just more complicated? For some reason, that's where my mind goes. And the easy, simple route is usually, disregarded, not really looked at, not taken seriously. And so I started to realize in many areas of my life, like where I was making excuses or coming up with arguments to not do certain things that would actually make my life easier. So, for example, I was staying in a job that was actually like really low pay and it really drained me. I wasn't lit up by it. But in my minds, I was getting some benefits in terms of, discounts, and it was flexible and it was basically, lots of freedom in terms of I could work from wherever I want, when I want, and just a lot of independence. But there were so many negative aspects that were really keeping me in this cycle of scarcity and not really meeting my needs and also draining the heck out of my energy. And so holding on to this was actually making my life harder. But of course, it is scary to let go of things. Then there was also, instances of like, well, I really want to make my business work and I don't want to work a 9 to 5 and that kind of thing. So I literally just did contract work. So there was not really any benefits. There was no vacation days or anything like that. And I really wanted a vacation. I really wanted to take time off. I really wanted to, do more things for my health, whether it's naturopath, massages, whatever it is. And in my mind, it was more beneficial to just do the contract route, have more freedom, quote unquote. But essentially, I was actually not giving myself more freedom. I was just working harder and earning less and having less benefits and not really any vacations because they would not be paid. So that's where I started to look at, well, what if I did become an employee in this company instead? And that actually turned out to be a lot easier for me and give me much more benefits and actually more freedom. So it was really looking at, well, where am I being really stubborn here? And is this actually the truth 100%? And is there another way to actually make this easier? the other thing was with like no days off as like an entrepreneur. And there was this like feeling of like I need to work all the time and with the contract work. And so when I started to shift this model and change jobs, find another one, look into becoming an employee, it actually made my life easier while working on the long-term goals and the vision, etc. It's not about having one or the other, but for me, it was like I was really stubbornly holding on to these jobs and contracts and things like that were actually making my life a lot harder and not really benefiting me anymore. So this is where I started to look at, well, what are areas of my life where I'm really making it harder for me, like even in just little moments, and noticing like how could I actually make this easy? Like what would be the easier option? And starting to ask myself that question more because this is where we can, really look at where are we blocking ourselves? Where are we making life harder for ourselves? And it's literally just like a choice that we need to make. And then the fourth one is how can I have more fun now? And I brought this up before, I believe, in some posts, but for me, I was really for a long time focusing on the long-term vision, big goals, and that were not going to happen probably in a few months or even a year. Like it would take years to reach that. And they were really like the next level. And so there was this sort of like pedestaling this vision of like, I'm going to feel so good and feel free when I achieve that level of success in career. And then I can do, the international travel and the house and all of these things, like these big goals. And so in my day-to-day life, there was a lot of sacrifice of like not really having much fun, focusing on the build and the grind and the hustle because I wanted that vision so badly. And I realized I was just creating a cage for myself, making things a lot harder because I was actually not enjoying my life right now. And I was just waiting to enjoy it later. And obviously, this isn't about like not having big goals, but how can you actually implement those values that you are associating in the future into your life right now? So whether it's like freedom, how can you feel more free right now? Little things like riding my bike anywhere, going on an afternoon walk or hike in the middle of the afternoon because I have that flexibility with my job. That feels like freedom, fun, play, joy, like going to a new coffee shop. That brings me joy, even going grocery shopping, doing like an adventure day, a day trip, like little things that you can do in your daily life, your weekly, your monthly routine that help to meet those values that you associate with the life that you're going to have in the future. Because not only does this actually make you feel good now, and that's what we're really going after is the feeling, but then you associate to those values and those feelings now, which can actually bring the desired reality that is associated with those values closer and faster to you. And so this is what I've been really implementing. And it's again a practice and a process to look at how can I have more fun now? Because we don't have to wait for the future because life is happening now. And we're going to be going through our lives and noticing like I wish I actually enjoyed where I was at that time because there's so many things that we can enjoy now, but we might overlook it and think that we actually don't have time for it when it's actually really, really important. And then the last one I want to say is focusing on me versus focusing on the external results. So, for example, in my life, there's been lots of like focusing on like the health stuff, whether it's clearing my skin, getting my cycle back, all of these like health goals that I really wanted to accomplish. And it was just focusing on that of like, I don't have this, I'm breaking out, I don't have my period, I don't have this, whatever. And I want to get this back. I want to clear my skin, whatever. And there was this like obsession about it, whether it's in career, business, like getting, signing clients, working with people, sales, things like that, really focusing on the external result and doing whatever I had to do to get there. So investing in lots of things, in people, learning, etc. And it was just this chasing energy of like, I'm going to feel whatever it is, free, fulfilled, happy when I achieve this goal. not noticing that I was actually focusing, really chasing it from a lack mentality and a depletion of not actually focusing on me. What do I actually need to feel nourished, lit up, supported, loved, healthy, whatever it is? Because this is where we can actually go farther and quicker by focusing on how can we support ourselves and investing into us, like because you are the common denominator and you are the one who is going to attract all of these things. So we really want to focus on building you up with the skills and the self-care and the nurturing and the nourishment and all of these things that are going to result in more homeostasis, balance, fulfillment, clarity, authenticity. And that is the thing that's actually going to accelerate your results. And this is something that I had to learn the very hard way in my health and career and business, where I was constantly chasing the external, but I wasn't focusing on me. I was neglecting myself while I was chasing after these goals. And it actually just made it take so much longer and feel so much worse in the process. And so this is where the reflection that really came up was how can I focus on building myself up, and it's not about not having, external goals, but really bringing that focus back to you because maybe you need more support in the form of mental, emotional, physical, anything, any sort of support. For me, that meant like actually having a coach and counselor for myself and supporting the hurdles I was going through, supporting my mental well-being, that kind of thing, looking into nutrition support, self-care, emotional regulation. All of these things are really going to build you into the person who is, as I mentioned, all of those things, really fulfilled in their authenticity, balanced, feeling alive, energized, vitalized. So you're not pouring from an empty cup, but then also the person who has a greater capacity to attract and hold more. So it's really about investing into yourself, I think, is really the most important thing versus constantly focusing on that external result and bypassing yourself. So these are some things that I've been working on behind the scenes, some lessons that have really come up for me. And I want to share because I think that these can definitely be relatable and applied to any area of life. And I think that it's really important that we do share these sorts of things because, life is very challenging sometimes. And we're all going through things. And oftentimes we don't share that. So I want to share some things that I was just reflecting on that I've been working on recently or during the past year and that have been practices for me as well, because none of this is like ever perfect. But when we do bring these things to our awareness and we actually, make a conscious effort to actually work on them when they come up and, take actions in these different areas that we talked about or that are relevant to you, then that's where things really can shift on like a foundational level and where our life can really shift as well. Because these are things that lots of people will face. And oftentimes we don't talk about like the sticky things that go on behind the scenes that are beyond just like conventional strategies and things like that. So I hope that this served you. I'd love to hear from you if anything resonated. And if you'd like to hear from any topics in the future, my inbox is always open and I'd love to hear from you.